Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Star Scholars Leadership Series. This morning, we have Dr. Babu George joining us. So welcome, Dr. George.
Thank you.
And so, we would love to learn more about your leadership journey and to learn about, how you entered the world of higher education. Is it something that you always aspire to, or did it just kind of appear somehow, not appear somehow, but was there a certain opportunity that opened up where you were like, maybe I can work in the academy?
um, Very broad question, so it is probably not very easy to narrow down to a specific response. It has been a journey, and I wouldn't classify or categorize myself as a leader, follower, or any of those brackets. I keep doing the things that I am inspired to do. And at any given moment, I am a leader, I am a follower, I am an island of my own. I am part of the crowd. I am all these. So it depends upon the perspectives and the kind of task that I do. But talking about my formative experiences, because that's what brought me to this role. I think I went through a lot of trying times in my formative years. I was born and raised in very humble beginnings in a remote little village in the southern part of India. I grew up in a family of peasants. My grandfather had a fairly large farm, but it doesn't generate a lot of wealth. But I saw him doing things which I would call represent leadership. How he tended the farm animals, how he cared for them to ensure that they give the best yield, if it is a cow in terms of milk. And I saw him watering the rice paddy. It's not very easy because we had very uneven landscape, and you need to ensure that water reaches from one place to the other. And sometimes it has to work against the gravity. Sometimes you have to reduce the flow of water. So all this is about managing natural resources. I observed that and I participated in that. So those gave me my early experiences of managing, I would say, natural resources. But then I also worked early on as a volunteer with several nonprofit community organizations. And I was fortunate enough to get some leadership experience from them. I said I am from a very remote village in the United States. You don't use the word village a lot, you use town. So let's say a small town. I cannot call it a town because there was no grocery store or anything. So I was probably one of the most educated people there, even when I completed my high school. And that pushed me into a lot of community leadership roles, be it in the church, be it in the, village governance bodies or in the local schools. So those helped me to refine myself as, well, I wouldn't want to use the word leader again, but, to demonstrate my ability to bring the best in people and to optimally use resources for the greatest impacts. So it is kind of both management and leadership. Then I also, got an opportunity to be a prominent figure in the high school and college student government bodies. I was the high school student union chairperson, and the college student union general secretary. So all those experiences helped me a lot to identify my weaknesses rather than, I mean, I may not have identified my strengths yet, but I would know by this time that, these are certain things I have to work on and, improve myself. So I'm sorry, I said, my answer is not going to be very short. I'm
No,
going
that's
to
okay.
summarize.
This is
so,
great.
so yes. So those experiences helped me to be who I am. But again, I never categorize myself as someone who need to be standing out from the crowd and leading them. I always felt that there is a logic of a community of people. And once you understand that logic, that this community of people is trying to articulate and resonate yourself with that voice of the community, you naturally become a leader. You don't need to stand out. You just need to listen to what the aspirations of a group of people are. Or you look at resources out there and see, oh, if I reconfigure these resources in this way, I can gain synergy. I can gain something more than what I see with my naked eye. So by observing, by participating, and of course, in a lot of trial and error, I made a lot of mistakes in my life. So, all those helped me become who I am. Yeah, I mean, I can probably explain more as you ask more questions. I don't want to give answers to everything that you might be asking in the future.
Yeah. No, no, and that's really great. And I love that you use the personal example of,
Mhm.
seeing what you saw your grandfather do growing up, because
Yes.
I think about seeing my grandmother and her work ethic. Both of my grandmothers actually
Yes.
worked really hard. And even though they didn't have like a leadership title per se, still much of what they were doing was leadership. And
Yes.
so I would love to hear your insight on, because a lot of times when we think of leadership, we think of a title, or we think of someone at the top of the hierarchy, depending how your organization is structured. But we all have the potential to be leaders, whether we define ourselves as that or not. And so I guess I'm curious too, like what are your thoughts about that, especially for junior faculty members and researchers who may come in and feel like, okay, I don't really have a lot of power, I don't really have a lot of say so. What would you say to those individuals, as they navigate their roles and trying to figure out, how they can make an impact in their organization?
Very good question. And the traditional textbook answer is, in academia, they say if you are a junior faculty member, never take a leadership role until you get tenure. And this is kind of a, golden words. I have never believed in that. I mean, I probably faced some of the negative consequences of not believing in that, at some stage in my career. But I don't. I mean, I don't subscribe to that. What I have done, and I would say it helped me to become who I am, or will be continuing to help me, is I was a junior faculty, and I felt that I was not getting the support and help that junior faculty members needed, and every faculty member knows that, oh, I wish if things were different. I wish I had more support for research. I had more support for buying equipments and software tools that would help me become a better teacher and researcher. I wish if I had an opportunity to engage with the community, with corporations out there in a more meaningful way. So there is a huge wish list, and junior faculty members, particularly their idealism, they try to get it all done through the administrators, be it department chairs or deans or any other decision maker, people of power in the hierarchy. And then they understand things do not work. And I also had my own experiences. But what I didn't stop at that. I didn't feel, I mean, I was disappointed, but I started thinking, if I were in the role of a department chair, if I were in the role of a program director or a dean, what would I have done differently in order to support me, who is right now a faculty member? So while I was an assistant professor earlier on, this was a constant thought in me. And that was probably one of the drivers that made me to, administrative roles, not immediately, but step by step. Because I put myself in the role of an administrator when I was a faculty member, and started visualizing, started imagining, started thinking, what could an administrator do to help faculty members? So even when I became an administrator, I am primarily a faculty member. If I become a provost, I will probably, I don't aspire to become a provost, and I want to go back as a faculty member earlier than later. But if I become a provost or president of a university, I will probably write professor and provost, professor and president, rather than the other way. I have always remained to be a professor. I will always remain to be a professor, because my primary affiliation is as a faculty member, as a teacher and teaching scholar practitioner. So anyway, coming back to that question, I accepted, an interim department chairship while I was an assistant professor, and then I had both these roles, and I started trying to, implement some of the things that would make the life of faculty members easier. And I realized that it is not easy. When you look from this side, you will think it is easy for a department chair or a dean to make decisions that will make the systems better. But when I became just as an interim department chair, and I also got an opportunity to talk to more seasoned leaders, academic administrators, and they were all well-minded, well-intentioned people, but I understood it was not easy. There are systemic problems in higher education, and that was an eye-opener. Those systemic problems need to be overcome in order to make any transformative changes in higher education. That again led to a lot of other explorations, which made me think I should also do a master's degree in education leadership. And I did that despite having a PhD in management. That again contributed to me becoming an academic administrator. So my life hasn't been a straight line with the clean edges, it's very difficult to explain. There are a lot of complexities. Visiting back my education, my undergraduate degrees in electronics and my master's degrees, MBA is in hospitality and tourism. I have a PhD in general management. Then I have a doctor of business administration in international marketing, and then this EDS degree in education innovation. So I touched upon different things, and that also helped me understand different disciplinary perspectives, different ways people from different disciplines think, and also try to find the similarities. For example, after completing my undergraduate degree in engineering, I went to hospitality and tourism management. I found that there is a similarity of Newton's gravitational principle in tourism, because people are more likely to be attracted to a tourist destination that is, that is greater gravity, that is closer to their place of, origin. So I started finding parallels across disciplines. And likewise, I also found parallels in the thinkings, in the theories, principles, practices, everything in different disciplines. So what I'm trying to say is that all these experiences taken individually do not make sense. But when I put them together, at least in the hindsight, it all makes sense for me. It helps me see, experience, understand complexity in a way that makes sense in a holistic manner.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And I love that you touched on that, the importance of like interdisciplinary experience and like understanding different areas. And I will say this, because I do feel like in academia, it's really easy for us to be in a bubble and to be really drawn to just, our area of research. Oh, this is what I went to school for. But I do think it's really important to have that holistic view in order to really solve some of our most pressing issues. And that kind of leads into my next question. So, what experiences have you gained outside of academia that you feel like have really helped prepare you for where you are today? Because we do, like I said, we are kind of in a bubble in higher ed. So are
Yes.
there specific organizations you worked with or even volunteered with that you feel like
Uh-huh.
have helped you in your current position?
Um, I have done a lot of consulting work earlier on in my career. I have consulted for both large scale, very large scale Fortune 500 organizations, business, corporations, as well as very small mom and pop type community and small business organizations. So um, oftentimes it is said, if you come from the corporate world to academia as a leader, you create havoc. You bring the corporate culture, corporate way of doing things which do not work in the academy. But my experience was not as a full-time manager or an executive in a corporation, except for 1 or 2 years after I completed my master's degree. My experience was as a consultant, which helped me see how things work in the corporations without getting too much into the baggage of those. I'm not saying the corporate culture is inferior to culture in academia, but there is some level of compatibility, primarily because of structural differences. There is so what I'm trying to explain is again this experience as a consultant helped me see how corporations work, how businesses work, both small, medium, and large, how different kinds of organizations work, non-profits and profit, international and domestic. I consulted for organizations probably in several countries, particularly in the Caribbean, several years. So those help me see different management styles, different leadership styles, how to develop cross-cultural competence, how to navigate in uncertain environments. Because while you consult, you freedom to do armchair thinking than when you are a manager. And I probably made the best use of that. It was a training for myself to become a, well, one should not praise oneself, but I would say unconventional thinker. So I think that I am bold enough to take risk. I like to think out of the box if I see a box. So these experiences, different kinds of experiences, but primarily as a consultant. But then I also talked about my volunteer work. I consulted as a pro bono consulting for several small businesses while I was in India. Actually, visit them and spend time with them. Handicrafts, organize, manufacture. Wouldn't say manufacturing and production facilities, small cooperative societies of rural people. I helped develop community-based tourism projects in India. So all those experiences came together. I'm not saying any of them have direct implications for what I do now, but there are occasions when these things help. I would say I was very prepared for digital transformation in higher education because of my consulting experiences in the past. I have seen how the digital technologies helped some of the corporations that were ailing, very, very badly hurt. And so COVID-19 transition forced universities to go digital. And I know a lot of my colleagues, they were not prepared for it. They didn't even see the value for it, even when they were faced with the need for it, because people were saying, hey, we will use it, when we cannot teach on campus. But a lot of people are still saying, we want to go back to the days of the yore. But I have a different perspective on all those things, thanks to my experiences as a consultant.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that because the past 3 years has really shaken up higher education in a way that we weren't ready for, or in some organizations were a little more prepared. those organizations that do have a stronger digital education presence. But a lot of us simply were not ready for it. And so I guess I'm curious because a lot of people may say, "There's no way I want to be in any kind of leadership position at this point in time." And we've seen a lot of turnover, all the way up to the president level. A lot of presidents have, said, okay, thank you, but no, thank you. They've resigned. And we've just seen so many people coming in and out. And it's been like this across the workforce. I know you know this as someone with your business expertise. Um, and so for people who may be hesitant, like there's no way I would want to take on a department chair or a dean role with this much chaos right now. What would you say to them, to individuals who may have reservations about because of all we've had to endure?
Yeah, I mean, all of us realize that we have a very limited life, and when we look back, we want to see that we made an impact, a positive change in the communities, in the people that we relate with. So shying away from a leadership position, especially when you believe you could make that impact, is probably going to haunt you back, when you look back at your life. You may know that you may often think that, hey, there may be someone else who is smarter than me, but why not that person become a leader or take more leadership responsibilities? Many of us are in that bracket, but then they may have other things to do. They may have things that you don't anticipate them going through. They all may have their own baggage. So if you think you have a basic minimum skill sets, competence to take up on a leadership responsibility, and if it is presented to you, do not shy away, because this is an opportunity for you to make the impact. And whatever we say during COVID-19, the contributions that you make will have a multiplier effect of impacts compared with before COVID-19. A lot of us do something that create greater impact now. So it's just like a greater interest rate for your investment. Any decision that you make now, it has far-reaching impacts. And something I have noticed is that there is more decentralization in the academia right now. Yeah. And I wouldn't say it is primarily because COVID-19, it may be also because of the increased use of digital technologies. The digital technologies basically force some kind of decentralization of authority and power. So as a department chair or even as a program coordinator in the academic settings, you feel like you can make decisions, and those decisions actually get implemented faster than in the era of paper pushing. So there is an opportunity for you to impacts, and if you know how to allocate your limited resources. I'm talking about your time, your competing interest in your other compulsions in life. If you know the basic stuff like time management, managing limited resources, those are basic essentials. And if you know that, and then if you have an attitude to contribute, everything else will work out. And people are more sympathetic to you during COVID-19. That's something I observed. Of course, when you make a mistake, that mistake also will have amplified negative consequences for the beneficiaries. But I believe that leaders are generally more receptive of you making a mistake, because we know that we recognize that not everything is controllable. So if you're afraid that as a leader you make mistakes, this is probably the best time to try, because people tolerate you making mistakes.
Good point.
So, I'm not calling for you to be, or even to be adventurous
right.
or activists when it comes to making decisions. But there is more empathy, there is more appreciative understanding of, our inadequacies and limitations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great point. I guess I never thought about it that way, but if you are going to do it, now is the time because people are a lot more empathetic and understanding. Um, I want to revisit something you said earlier because I found it to be incredibly profound, and I know quite a few professors who identify as a professor first, and then whatever their administrative role is. So you said I'm a
mhm.
professor and interim dean, and if you do become a provost, it'll be professor and provost. And a lot of people, a lot of faculty members, I know that is a part of their identity that they never want to lose, right? Um, and so our network has a lot of scholars and faculty members in particular. And so can you talk about how your faculty experience in particular and your research as well, because we do have a number of
Mhm.
researchers, how your research and your faculty experience has shaped your administrative experience?
Um, my research experience in particular, because I talked about the other side a little more. Earlier on, I was fortunate enough to be in the network of scholars from different disciplinary fields, thanks to my own educational background and also the kind of communities that I did and worked with. So I always I was fascinated by the interfaces between disciplines rather than what is at the core of any specific discipline. For example, what is there between sociology and management?
Mm-hmm.
What is there between psychology and leadership and management? Um, what is there between computer science and again business management? So I was interested in all these what is happening at the interfaces, and I actively sought collaborations with scholars from other disciplines because of my interest in that. So I some of my most I would not in terms of citations, but in terms of what I feel proud about is I worked on topics like human trafficking, um, crimes, community development issues. Those are not at the core of what a conventional scholar of business management would think as the core. So but I was very, very curious about these issues because I found more impacts. I mean, it may not be impact in terms of citations, it may not be impact in terms of your credibility as a management scholar, but in terms of your impact upon the real people out there, real communities out there. So I was specifically choosing topics that needed me to collaborate, that called me for collaboration with scholars from other areas. And that helped me develop my network, that helped me understand how other disciplines, examine different issues, their methodological approaches, everything. So if you look at my research publications, a lot of them are like this, not in the so-called core management, which is probably a downside also because people may call those like me as a jack of all trades. uh, but then at some point when you look, that breadth is what is very important for anyone who aspires to be a leader. The ability to see the forest, the ability to see, I mean, you should also see the individual trees, but you should, that big picture is very important as you grow up in any leadership position. So my research has helped me connect with disciplines. It helped me see the big picture of things. What is the connection between economics and say biopsychology, or what is the connection between sustainability and profitability? all those intricate issues that typical traditional management scholars do not address. I mean, I'm not saying people are not working on it, but generally speaking, when you think about a business scholar, you think about someone who is working on what adds to the profitability, of a corporation immediately, directly. Anyway, so scholarship was for me a way to interconnect the pieces, and again, it is part of seeking a meaning in life. I know I started reading philosophy very earlier on. We had a small library in our near my home. Small library means the library had maybe 200 books, but I probably read all the books in that library.
Oh, wow.
So, but I read a lot of, not a lot. I mean, maybe 20 books on philosophy were there in that, and I read all of it. So that helped me, because philosophy is the mothership of all disciplines. And I try to come up with a personal philosophy of life. And even when I approached my scholarship in my profession, and I try to keep asking me, how is it connected with, the person that I am who is investigating anything. I wanted to contribute to the understanding of myself through my research. I mean, I cannot write it in a research paper that, this was the driver for investigation. But, anything that I do as a scholar, there was a thread in it which was looking at me and trying to understand the meaning and purpose of my life. So that's now, again, when I become an administrator, I started looking at a lot of administrative issues from the eyes of a scholar. So I became a full-time administrator. I mean, I was doing part-time academic administration earlier on, but full-time administrator in 2015 Fort Hays State University in Kansas. I was directing the international programs, and that was a tremendous opportunity for me to look into some of the issues that traditional academic scholars do not look into. So I started looking into international education management, higher education, leadership and management issues in the cross cultural, international, global context. So a lot of my research publications since then are about international education. So what I'm trying to say is that when I became an administrator, a full-time administrator, my scholarship was informed by my practice. So I wanted to do what you call the scholarship of praxis. So again, there is a back and forth contribution. My practice, my lived experience as an academic administrator helped me, refine my research topics, look for data, and then the findings of my research I could bring back and apply to my role as an administrator. So again, it's at this stage, it is similar to that, a lot of work. I mean, I don't have the flexibility to do a lot of research, obviously not high impact research, but then I apply the eye of a scholar in my practice as an administrator. I probably write small case studies about my administrative experiences, and I try to bring my experience and expertise as a management scholar into my practice as an academic administrator, because this is also management, even though it is not in a corporate setting.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Yes.
And then, sorry, was there something else you wanted to?
No.
Okay. Sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge, on Zoom. But I guess one other question I have for you, and the last question is around professional development.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a two-part question. Are there certain professional development programs or trainings that you participated in that you think helped you get to where you are today? And then are there certain professional development opportunities that you think junior faculty members should engage in if they know they want to take on a department chair or a deanship or higher? Do you think there's certain programs they should be looking at or considering in order to be prepared?
Mhm. Yeah, I would definitely not wish to market any specific
Yeah.
programs,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, a lot of us become. I mean, again, this anecdotal. Uh, Most of the successful department chairs that I know, they learned it by doing rather than attending specific professional development programs. I mean, of course, those professional development programs uh, contributed to their refining process as better administrators and leaders, but by participating in committee work, by participating in different university, you know, task forces, you gain experiences. One of my experiences earlier on was that I was a member of while I was working at the University of Southern Mississippi. That was my first job. I was the co-chair for the university's faculty senate committee for external relationships, international engagement. So that, I mean, even as an assistant professor, that was, I mean, not many people would want to be a Senate member as an assistant professor, faculty Senate, they don't want to be. I mean, normally, tenured faculty would go to that. But I took the risk of doing it. And that helped me understand how the university functions. And I also served as a member of the university's strategic planning committee. That gave me that big picture view of, how different individuals and groups work in the university system. And then I could see some star performers and some not so, mediocre ones. And then working with these people under their mentorship, that was very, very helpful for me. I also, I mean, I say that I didn't attend any professional development program until I became a department chair. But the thing is that this is another irony. Universities want faculty to grow into leadership roles, but they don't invest in that proactively. Once you become a department chair, they will be very happy to send you to, after you become a department chair, they will be happy to send you to, develop yourself as a chair, not before that. Mm-hmm. So, very rarely people get an opportunity to participate in developing themselves for a future role. I mean, it happens, but not very often. So if you get an opportunity, yes. For me, 3 years ago, one of the most important, remarkable experience was I was chosen to attend the Harvard University's IEEM program, Institute for IEEM. I got the Institute for Education Management. It's primarily meant for higher level executives, but I was just a department chair. For some reason, they allowed me to attend it. I was probably the junior most participant in my cohort. That experience really, really helped me because some of the participants were the presidents, some of them were pros, some of them vice presidents of very large universities. And also we had participants from other countries. We worked on several simulated projects, problem solving exercises, looked into universities, finances, human resource issues. So that program was really, really helpful, this Institute for Education Management. Again, I'm not marketing any program per se, but what I'm trying to say is that if you go and attend any of these programs without some basic experience in what you do, you may not be able to relate anything. So as a faculty member without any experience in administration, if you attend any of these professional development program, you may be able to keep writing, stack of notes. You may bring PowerPoint presentations, but you may not be able to relate. So earlier on, start joining, university, college, departmental committees, student government mentorship roles, other Greek association mentorship roles, and then develop some perspective then go to attend these programs. Then you can, relate better and gain something more useful.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And that was a big part of the reason why I felt like you would be a great guest on this series is because you are so well-rounded and you have such a diverse portfolio. And so I want to thank you personally for sharing all of your different insights and perspectives, especially for some of our students and our researchers and junior faculty members who are kind of on the fence of, okay, do I want to go into an administrative role one day, or do I just want to stay within, the researcher faculty realm? And so I think a lot of what you shared is really insightful and
Yes.
helpful, particularly for people who are
Yeah.
trying to gauge where they want to go next.
Yes. If I can add one more thing, it's that
Yes.
do not accept an administrative role just because you hate teaching and research. Unfortunately, a lot of people become administrators or lobby themselves do whatever they can do to become administrators because they cannot do well as professors or as scholars. That's something that happens more often than not. People who hate teaching and research, or people who think that they can do a good job, let me become an administrator. And then, they prefix every sentence that they say, hey, I like to teach, I like to do research, or I'm an administrator. That happens a lot more. If you do not like teaching, if you do not like scholarship, you may not be again a star scholar as a scholar, but if you have I have seen academic administrators saying behind closed doors that I hate to do research. I hate people doing research because they are diverting from the primary mission of the university. Of course, you cannot expect, you don't expect every professor to spend 80% of the time to do research, but universities should also be producing knowledge rather than merely disseminating knowledge. So you do not have professors who do not produce scholarship. They're basically just, translators of what is in the textbook. And that's not what you expect from professors, even in teaching universities. You don't need that. You can get all that online these days. So there should be some original production of knowledge by every faculty member. So I don't like anyone becoming administrator because of their distaste for teaching or research. I would like people to be administrators because of their passion to make the best out of themselves and also other faculty to become better scholars and teachers. So you should respect teaching and research before you become an administrator.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent advice, and I'm really glad you touched on that because, it is easy to say, "Oh, I bet the grass is greener on the other side." That's a common quote we use, but you may get into that and find that you hate it just as much as you hate it. So it's like you really do have to develop that strong passion and sense of self and who you are as an academic first before you take on those administrative roles. You're absolutely right. And so thank you for that. Well, Dr. George, that's all the questions I had for you today. Any other final thoughts you would like to share with our audience members before we close out? Or
well, I'm not very good with advising.
Yeah, you did. You've given a lot of good advice.
I do a decent job in advising students, but advising. Okay. We are living in very uncertain times, and one thing I would say is do not be dogmatic about anything. Always be willing to disprove yourself before someone else comes to disprove. And we may have our ideas on certain golden rules and things that work when the environment is less chaotic. You can be a pilot piloting an airplane in 35,000 feet, no turbulence. That is one kind of skill, but what we increasingly see is that that skill is not going to, make you do a good job. So you should know that, there is turbulence everywhere, disruptions everywhere. So you should be agile, you should be adaptive, but you should also be one step ahead of it. I don't have a term for that, because agility and adaptiveness, all those things we knew before, but we are going through something which is more than that. We don't have a lot of history to guide our future conduct, because the disruptions are such that we have no experience of dealing with them in the past. So always be willing to correct your course, have some plan Bs and plan Cs when things do not work, and then experience the ride. That's very important, because we are very likely to face setbacks in things we do. I mean, as administrators, as faculty. So when things go wrong, we should develop a mindset to experience the journey rather than, we may not be closer to a destination out there. And I think that's very important. Something that has helped me calm down over the last few years is the thought that I am not going to a destination which is already there. I make the best of my present, and wherever that leads me to is my destination, which is not pre-written out there. So I think that mindset has helped me. Keep yourself open to experiences, keep yourself open to new possibilities. One career within one institution, within one city, I think those days are gone.
I agree.
So
Yeah, well, thank you for that. That's excellent advice. And we really do appreciate your time today. And for our listeners, feel free, if you have any questions, you can post them in the YouTube chat section, and we can get those questions over to Dr. George to answer. And so thank you again for your time. And also thank you for our listeners. As you all know, we upload a new episode every second Wednesday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern. So please continue to join us. And thank you again, Dr. George.